Yet again, back by popular demand, to share some top tips on how you can do exactly that. So, Craig, where do we start? Lying and deception.
Right, let's start there. That's always a popular one. Now, if you subscribe to Sarah's work and you came along to see a presentation I did last month about lying and deception in Bury, you'll have understand the top tips about lying and deception. So I'm going to cover a few today. Now, one of the biggest myths that that people associate lying with is that they avoid eye contact with you. Now, that is a complete and utter myth. Liars are more likely to give you more eye contact. And there's a few reasons for this. It's because they want to gauge your non-verbal responses to see if you're being sucked into the lie. So they need to do that by increasing their eye contact. And also, why liars engage in more eye contact is because they believe, but falsely believe, it's a sign of truthfulness. Generally in this country, we give between 3 to 5 seconds worth of eye contact, then we break. If we go to different cultures, like for Japan, it's very deeply offensive to give more than 3 seconds at a time. But in this country, it's 3 to 5. So if you find someone who's telling you a story, who's dramatically increasing their eye contact with you, and you don't think it sounds believable anyway, because don't forget, we need to have clusters. Just because they look at you a lot is not an indicator on its own. There needs to be further cues. Again, that's an indicator of deceit. So really prolonged eye contact, potentially. Now, what I must stress is there are more verbal than visual cues to deceit. There are quite a lot of myths associated with body language, like looking a certain direction or touching of the nose or scratching the back of the head. Now, a liar will purposely avoid these because they look suspicious. If I was telling you a story and I was rubbing the back of my neck, rubbing my knee, touching my nose, that's going to arouse suspicion in the target, and that's not the sense that you want to give off. You want to appear credible. Those kind of behaviours are not going to appear credible. So what you're looking for is for someone who is relatively poker-faced and relatively static in their delivery, because they're not going to give anything away, because they believe that any kind of movement they give off might be seen as deceptive.
I'm laughing because I can think of a few people that I know that do exactly that.
And it's interesting because, like I said to you before, we are often so unaware of the behaviour we do. Like, for instance, when I asked you to put those thumbs together, you were unaware of which one you did. If I asked you to fold your arms together, you'd be completely unaware of what you do. And a good thing about liars is they are often unaware of what hand gestures to do. Because, like I said to you before, our hand gestures are very subconscious and are very spontaneous. So, like, if I was to ask anybody in this office now, what hand gestures did you do this morning when you got up and you were talking to your missus? What did you do? How did you illustrate that you wanted either a cereal or toast for breakfast? Because you would have articulated that with your hands. He wouldn't have a clue. I wouldn't have a clue. It's all subconscious. We don't really control our hand gestures because they're independent, really, of our body. So there's the same way that liars will often avoid making these hand gestures. And 2 reasons for this. If the lie itself is quite cognitively demanding, meaning there's a lot of thought needs to go into making the lie and making it sound believable and consistent, then that reduces your behavioural animation. Because the brain has got enough work to do with putting together this lie that it neglects the rest of the body. So one reason why a liar doesn't necessarily show increases in movement is because their brain won't allow it because it's too busy. And also, if the liar starts consciously moving their hands, they're not quite sure which hand gestures they use because they're so used to having them working independently. Now they've got to control their body language, which is called impression management, that they're unaware of what they do and what looks natural to them. So, and they don't know what's natural to them, so any kind of hand movement they might give off might look suspicious. And that's an indicator why liars will often try and remove their hand gestures and try and just keep everything nice and straight. And that is a good indicator of how you spot lying and deceit.
Interesting stuff.
It is. It's very, very fascinating. So with that in mind, I must make an apology live on air. This is the first and only time I will ever do this. If you're an avid subscriber to my YouTube analysis videos, I've been doing about 100 different video tutorials on the internet, and I'm pleased to say I'm only 13,000 away from 1 million. So I'm very, very blessed at that. However, on one of my videos, I absolutely slated one very well-respected and eminent body language professionals here in the United Kingdom called Robert Phipps, who is very well known, got quite a few best-selling books out at the moment, and he went on a show on Richard Hammond, and he was talking about body language, and because I was a rookie in my younger years, I completely and utterly slated his work, and we've since become slight friends because of this, but I must apologise to him on air about that, because obviously we all have to learn somewhere. And sadly, I made the one and only fatal error of criticising somebody else's work. So that will be the first and only time that happens. I've since learned my lesson about that. And maybe one day me and Robert could do some work together. That would be great.
There you go. Nice apology there.
There you go. It needed to be done. That's
all
right.
Sorted.
Absolutely.
Friends again. So this is used a lot, isn't it? I mean, I suppose the police use this a lot with the body language when they're interrogating people, things to look out for. Especially
in America. It's big in America. In this country, there are behavioural analysis and behavioural profiles, but certainly on the FBI, they have their own behavioural division. These kind of behaviours that I'm talking to you about today are well-researched indicators of deceit, which have come from interviews and interrogation techniques. The difference between an interview and an interrogation is an interrogation, the interrogator does all the talking and tries to coerce a confession, whereas an interview, the opposite, the suspect does more talking.
I mean, there's lots of different video analysis that you do, don't you, of different famous people. Even there was a programme, I know I've mentioned this before, I think it was months and months ago now, that was on TV where there was people giving pleas on TV in murder cases. For example, someone would be given a plea about their partner, and if anybody knows who killed them, please come forward, and they're really upset. And then when they actually rewind the video, there's slight micro expressions of when they're actually smiling for like split seconds and things like that, and then it turns out that the person that was actually doing the plea turned out to be the one who'd committed the murder.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we always give things away, don't we?
We do. In that respect, those are called micro expressions, and those are momentary signs of concealed expressions, but there are true inner feelings. And the reason why you mention the smile is often with these kind of things, it's called duping delight, and you'll often see that register on. It's the only asymmetrical facial expression we can make, and it's where the buccinator, which we talked about before, which is responsible for like blowing a whistle or for sucking action. We use that expression there, like the little smirk that I'm doing now, and it's called contempt. And in that respect there, they might be feeling contempt for a number of different reasons. If they're on a plea about asking for information about a missing girl whom they might have kidnapped for reward money, which we all know that case in a few years ago here in Great Britain, they might be feeling contempt about the fact that their performance is not arousing suspicion in the police. They also might feel contempt that somebody else is being blamed for this and they are going away scot-free. So that's why the smile often comes in, is because they're quite delighted in their own performance, that it's not arousing suspicion. But again, when we talk about people who plea for the safety of their child, what you'll find is if you'll find that they are suppressing their emotions during that plea, there's a problem. Imagine if your baby was stolen at birth, you would be frantic. The last thing you would do is suppress your emotions. You would be absolutely irate and upset. The last thing you would be doing is flashing contempt on your face. You will be flashing anger, possibly fear, disgust. All these kind of emotions will be registering on your face, negative emotions. So again, if you're looking at something, look at how that person possibly should feel, but look at what their face and the rest of their body is doing. It's very interesting. But when we talk about deceit, lying and deception, not all deceit is hurtful. If you take, for instance, the example you said there about a missing person, imagine that person was found to be murdered. Imagine how a mother would deal with that. So obviously you've got on one side of the spectrum someone who is absolutely, completely and utterly distraught. So their facial expressions are going to be very vast, a lot of expression on the face, really, really upset, so unconsolable. On the other side of the spectrum, if she's seen to be not bothered by it, by she's suppressing her emotions, then the impression there is she didn't really care for a child. It's not about that. So what sometimes at a funeral you will purposefully suppress your emotions because you don't want to appear too upset and unable to deal with it, and you don't want to appear that you're too comfortable dealing with it. So we'll deceive ourselves and other people by concealing our emotions, and that's welcomed. We know full well that they must be hurting inside, but they're putting on a brave face, and that's not deceptive, but we welcome that both as a sender and receiver.
What do you think the most honest part of the body is?
The legs.
The legs.
The legs is, without a doubt, the most honest part of our body language, because they're so far away from our hands that we utilise a lot. We often forget what the legs do. Like I said to you before about our gait performance, about our walking speed, that gives us an indication to someone's mood and current temperament. The legs especially are very important, especially in flirting and dating areas as well, about where we position our legs, how we point our knees when we're interested, how close we stand to somebody. Your legs are the most important part of body language, which is interesting actually, because they're often the most neglected. When we start doing research into body language, a lot of research has been done on the face and the upper torso. The legs are generally left to themselves. But one reason why the face often can be quite problematic is micro expressions are so fast. They can be up to half a second in duration. Not everyone can spot micro expressions, and there's been a lot of work done on the face, but from a young age we're often told to conceal our expressions, like, oh, look like you're interested, or take that look off your face. From a young age we're programmed to conceal emotions. With the legs it doesn't happen like that. Our legs are our carriers of ourselves. If we want to walk towards something, we'll go near it. It's the old paradigm of if we like something, we'll go near it. If we dislike it, we'll go away. And all that locomotive energy comes straight from the legs. So your legs are very, very important. So if you want to know if someone's interested in you, disregard the face and the upper actions. Look at the legs. Where are they standing in relation to you? Have they got one leg pointing towards the door? Is everything pointed in your direction? All the answers can be seen below.
There you go. I actually watched a video clip of poker players.
Yes.
And so you can obviously have a very good poker face, can't you? Conceal all your
absolutely,
emotion.
like I've just said, yeah, absolutely.
But if they're sat at a table, you could actually see the legs and how they were moving when the hands had been dealt the cards.
Happy feet.
And one of them had a really good set of cards,
yes,
but he had a really good poker face, but underneath the table his feet were going mad,
and he's
interesting.
And he's no idea he's doing that, and he's no idea that message is sending out a signal that I've got a good hand. And if you're savvy enough, you'd spot that, and then you wouldn't play against him, because obviously you must have a good hand. Like I said before, in poker we conceal a lot with our faces. That's what it's all about. And the bluff, your legs, very difficult to bluff, because we're often so unaware of the messages we send out. So if you follow my website and my work, you'll see I do a lot of work on the legs, because like I said, they're not very well researched, but they send out so many interesting messages to the receiver.
And if you know this information, is it easy to get down to the casino, have a look at people's legs? Who do you want to play against?
Possibly, yeah.
And they'll have no idea what you're doing.
You'll have no idea what I do. I think I heard a report that Darren Brown is banned. I heard
That's
that.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised, because his mind games and mind tricks
cost
on
you
you
a fortune if you owned a casino, wouldn't he?
Something like that.
He would do. So you're sticking around, Craig.
Absolutely,
this afternoon.
yes.
We're going to be talking about flirting and dating, how you can come across better in interviews. So if you're looking to get a job or start a new business, and relationships, so how they actually affect your relationship. So if you can spot lying and deception. So your relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that get on?
Me and my Mrs. Cat, otherwise known as the boss, very well actually. That's one of the most asked questions about me, is how does it affect your relationship with Kat? It affects it all for the better, because I've got a good understanding of when she's happy, when she's sad, when she's excited. I know when she wants to be left alone, because obviously we live together like most couples do, planning our future together, but often relationships need to have time away from each other to have outside interests. And I know when she wants to have time away, when she wants to spend time with me, and all this can be read via body language. And it's even better because I've known her for a long time, that I know her behaviour now. I know exactly how she feels and when she feels it. And I use it to my advantage. Like if she had a really bad day, she might have said, "Oh no, I'm fine," but then she'll flash on her face like frustration or upset or sadness, and I'll register that, because our face works faster than our words do.
Stay away.
Yeah, stay away. Oh yes, yeah, the dreaded row. Yes, that's another question I always get asked, is like when you have a row. Sometimes I do bring up the body language stuff now and again in a row, and that's got spur room written all over it for me.
Yeah.
but no, we use it for the great. And Kat is actually a really, really good body language reader now, especially when we go out for meals and stuff. She'll always go, "Look what's happening over there with that couple," and the things I've learned, she learns as well. So she sometimes catches me out as well. It's a nightmare, I'm telling you. I wish I'd never told her about this.
Teaching her all the tricks of the trade.
I certainly am.
Fantastic. So do stay tuned. We're coming right up after a little bit of CeeLo.